1 acre of the right cover crops can replace 2 months of hay, and most farmers don't even realize it. It's late October, pastures are browning out, hay prices are climbing, and most folks are watching their feed bills go vertical. But here's the thing, your ground doesn't have to shut down for winter, and hardly anyone talks about them, not seed reps, not feed stores, because they don't make money when you do this yourself. But farmers who figured it out are grazing 60 to 90 days longer, saving hundreds per acre, and rebuilding topsoil while their neighbors' pastures sit dormant. In this video, we're covering 7 cold-hardy species that actually perform once the grass fades, what zones they thrive in, what mixes fail, and exactly how to seed them so they survive frost. Stay to the end, because I'll show you the one mix that outperformed hay on both cost and protein, and the single mistake that can erase your entire winter forage overnight. If you farm anywhere from zone 3 to 9, this could change how you feed, starting this month. When feed prices rise, smart farmers stop buying calories and start growing them. Dual-purpose cover crops are how they do it. One system feeding both the herd and the land beneath it. Here's why they matter. Every mouthful your livestock takes from a living cover crop returns about 80% of those nutrients right back to the soil, instantly recycled through manure and urine. That means you're fertilizing the pasture every day it's grazed. A single 200-pound steer grazing a mix like rye and clover for 60 days can cycle the nutrient equivalent of nearly $50 worth of commercial fertilizer straight into your topsoil, without touching a spreader. Hoof action presses seeds into the soil, tramples residue, and feeds microbes that digest carbon faster. So instead of paying twice, once for feed and again for soil inputs, this system pays you back both ways. But there's a catch. Most farmers still seed cover crops too late, or pick varieties bred only for biomass, not digestibility, so they end up with tough stems, low nutrition, or nothing left after the first freeze. That's the difference between a living feed system and a failed experiment. Let's start with what truly survives frost, not just what seed tags claim. 1. Oats, the fall workhorse. If you plant one crop purely to buy time before hay season, plant oats. They grow fast, they're forgiving, and they'll stay grazable right down into the low 20s. In zones 3 through 8, oats seeded by mid-September still give you a solid graze window through late November. What makes them shine is what happens after that first frost. Oats convert starch to sugar as a natural antifreeze, which means every cold snap turns your pasture sweeter. Crude protein runs 14–18% pre-boot, and energy rivals small grain hay. Expect 1.5 to 2 tons of dry matter per acre from an early fall seeding, enough to cut a full month of hay feeding for a mid-size herd. Mix them with a brassica like turnip and you'll double both protein balance and regrowth potential. The only catch, once night temps dip below 10 degrees Celsius for more than a week, oats winter kill. But that residue becomes mulch that protects your next spring stand. 2. Forage turnips, protein in the ground. Turnips are the most underused winter feed on small farms. They grow where clover won't and produce 6,000 to 7,000 pounds of total feed per acre, half above ground, half stored as bulbs below. The tops run 18 to 22% protein and stay tender into early winter. After 2 hard frosts, livestock switch to digging out the bulbs, which stay insulated and edible long after the surface greens are gone. They perform best in zones 3 to 8, germinate in soil temps as low as 45 degrees, and thrive even under light snow. Goats, sheep, and cattle all adapt quickly if introduced gradually. The real trick is patience. Graze them too early and you rob the root. Wait until after the second frost and the energy density nearly doubles. 3. Winter brassicas. Cold season. Protein. Powerhouses. When everything else goes brown, forage turnips, kales, and hardy brassica crosses stay neon green. Cold tolerant into the low teens, they push 20 to 26% crude protein with digestibility over 75%, outperforming most stored hay. In field trials across the upper Midwest and Appalachia, well-managed stands have produced 4,000 to 6,000 pounds of grazable biomass per acre. Because they're low fiber and high sugar, always pair with dry hay or a grass strip to balance rumen function and prevent acidosis. Managed right, these brassicas aren't just feed. They're a living protein factory that keeps both livestock and soil biology active long after most pastures go dormant. 4. Forage radish, daikon, nature's subsoiler. If you want a crop that feeds animals and tills your ground for free, forage radish deserves a spot in every mix. Its taproot punches down over 3 feet deep, breaking through hardpan and dragging nutrients like nitrogen, potassium, and sulfur from the subsoil back to the surface. Think of it as a biological plow, one that livestock can eat. Above ground, the tops hit 18 to 22% protein, while the roots carry energy levels comparable to silage. Cattle and goats love them once they discover the flavor, and when grazed lightly before freeze-up, they rebound fast. The catch? They're not true overwinter crops. Once temperatures dip below 20 degrees, the tops die back and the roots rot down. But that's not all bad. Those decaying roots leave behind natural pore channels that aerate and warm your soil weeks earlier in spring, setting the stage for your next planting. In cold regions, zones 3 to 6, radish works best as a fall graze and soil builder. In milder climates, it can hold forage value well into December. Either way, it's the perfect transition crop that earns its keep even after it's gone. 5. Forage kale. The true winter holdout. While most brassicas collapse with frost, forage kale hangs on. With snow cover, hardy cultivars like Maris Kestrel or Siberian can persist down to -5 degrees, thriving through mud, thaw, and refreeze in zone 6 and warmer. What makes kale special is its regrowth potential. You can strip graze it in snow, leave a few inches of stalk, and it'll push out tender new growth as soon as the weather breaks. Protein levels stay around 17 to 20%. Sugars climb after frost, and livestock readily adapt to it if introduced gradually. For best results, interseed with cereal rye. Rye catches any nitrogen runoff, builds extra spring feed, and creates traction under hooves during wet spells. Together, they form a near-perfect insurance blend for unpredictable winters. If the rye takes over, you still have feed. If the fall stays warm, kale leads the ration. And the next two species aren't just feed. They actually build fertility and hold the line through mud, drought, and snow. They're the bridge between short-term feed and long-term soil wealth, and they change how entire rotations are designed. 6. Annual ryegrass plus crimson or balança clover mix. The Southern Power Pair. In the South and lower Mid-Atlantic, zones 6 through 9, few combinations pull their weight like annual ryegrass with crimson or balança clover. Ryegrass anchors the soil through winter rains, cutting erosion and giving you green cover when most pastures are bare. The clover does the invisible work, fixing 50 to 100 pounds of nitrogen per acre, feeding the grass and your spring cash crop at the same time. Grazed right, never below 4 inches and always given rest, this duo can yield 2 to 4 tons of dry matter per acre before heading out. That's a full cut of hay's worth of forage without the baler or fertilizer bill. The one risk is dominance. Ryegrass loves fertility and will smother your clovers if you seed heavy. Keep it at about an 8 to 1 grass to clover ratio. The reward is a dense, living mat that keeps livestock feed rolling from late fall through April, with the clover rebounding first at spring green up. It's the mix that turns winter mud season into a grazing season, provided you balance it, not just broadcast and hope. 7. Chicory, the mineral pump and parasite check. Then there's chicory, the deep-rooted perennial that quietly upgrades your entire pasture system. It's built for zones 5 through 8, and if it gets snow cover, it overwinters beautifully. Its taproot drills down over 2 feet, mining trace minerals like zinc, copper, and calcium that shallow grasses never touch. For livestock, it's a tonic plant. Controlled trials in New Zealand showed lambs grazing chicory had 30% lower parasite loads and better average daily gains compared to grass-only diets. The plant produces natural sesquiterpene lactones, compounds proven to suppress internal worms, meaning fewer deworming interventions and healthier animals by design. In the field, chicory shines as a forage booster inside existing perennial pastures. Seed it into thin spots or alongside orchard grass or fescue, and you'll see both better summer drought resilience and extended grazing windows. It doesn't produce the sheer biomass of ryegrass, but its nutrient density and anti-parasite benefits make every bite count. Together, these two species don't just survive winter, they rebuild it. Next, we'll look at how stacking these crops in rotation turns a single season of cover into a permanent regenerative cycle. Every region has its own version of winter survival. And when it comes to cover crops, what thrives in Alabama won't even sprout in Montana. So here's the real-world regional playbook. The combinations that actually work, not just look good in charts. Northern farms, zones 3 to 5. Up north, survival is everything. You're not overwintering lush green feed. You're setting up early spring advantage. Go with cereal rye, triticale, and purple-top turnips. The Brassicas will frost kill early, but that's a feature, not a failure. Their decaying tops create a natural mulch layer that insulates rye crowns and holds snow moisture, while the roots decay into perfect seed channels for your next planting. Timing is critical. Seed by early September. Or if you miss the window, frost seed in late winter right over the melt. That gives you the earliest grazing possible once soil temps climb above 40 degrees. Central Belt, zones 5 to 7. This is the sweet spot for diversity. Run a mix of oats, rye, brassicas, and a legume like crimson or balança clover. It's the best of both worlds. Fast fall growth from oats, deep nutrient cycling from brassicas, and steady nitrogen fixation from the clovers. Mid-September through early October is your ideal seeding window. Late enough to avoid heat stress, early enough to establish roots before frost. If managed rotationally, this blend can carry livestock well into January, giving you a solid 60-90 days of feed after your neighbors switch to hay. Southern systems, zones 7 to 9. Down south, winter is just a long, cool season, and that's where ryegrass, clover, and chicory shine. Add oats for early fall feed, then let ryegrass and clover take over through winter. In mild years, you can graze continuously from November through April, especially if you manage rest periods and rainfall cooperates. Skip the radish. It bolts in heat and wastes your nitrogen. Instead, focus on legumes for fertility and high-sugar ryegrass for energy. Now let's talk results, what these systems actually produce per acre, and how many bales of hay they can realistically replace when they're managed right. For all the talk about soil health, here's what really sells cover crops. The numbers. In Missouri and Georgia grazing trials, livestock on winter cover mixes averaged 1 to 2 animal unit months per acre. That's roughly $60 to $120 worth of feed saved per acre, just from turning animals onto what would have been bare ground. And those are conservative numbers. Some farms running dense rye brassica clover blends pushed even higher. The costs? A well-built multi-species mix runs $30 to $60 an acre. That's a 2 to 1 to 4 to 1 return on investment in a single season, before you even count the soil payback. Every acre grazed leaves behind $40 to $60 worth of slow-release nitrogen in the soil. That's fertility you don't have to spread. Add in the diesel and labor savings. Every 30 grazing days equals 1 less hay feeding cycle. And suddenly those cover crops look a lot more like cash flow crops that happen to rebuild soil on the side. This is the part most people miss. Grazing covers doesn't just save feed. It closes loops that fertilizer and diesel bills keep open. Here's where most good cover crop plans fail. Not in the seed bag, but in the timing and management. The first killer? Seeding too late. Once frost hits, roots stall. You'll get a green sheen, but no depth. And without roots, you've got no feed and no soil protection. Next is overgrazing. If you let livestock eat covers down to the dirt, they won't rebound. You lose your living armor and expose soil to erosion just when winter rain or snowmelt hits hardest. Then there's Brassica toxicity. Fast-growing turnips and radish love nitrogen, but under drought stress or sudden frost, they can spike nitrates high enough to cause issues, especially for pregnant or confined animals. Always wait 3 to 5 days after a hard freeze before grazing brassicas again. And maybe the most common one? Mix overload. Everyone wants a 7-way super blend, but too many species create competition instead of synergy. You end up with ryegrass dominating and legumes stunted. The fix? Start with a 3-species system. Dial it in for your climate first, then layer complexity once you know what thrives. If you remember one thing, remember this. It's not about the seed mix. It's about the timing and the grazing sequence. Get those two right, and your winter ground stops costing you money. It starts feeding you back. 7 cover crops that feed livestock and rebuild soil, from rye that thrives under snow to clovers that fertilize while you graze. These are the systems that turn a dead season into living profit. Feed, fertility, and structure, all working quietly while most pastures sit dormant. If this gave you new ideas for your farm, hit subscribe. We break down what actually works in regenerative systems, not just theory. And tell me in the comments, which mix would you try first on your land, and what zone are you in? Your answers help other farmers plan for the same challenges you're facing.